The British Prime Minister Keir Starmer has denied his government had any role in the collapsed spy case involving two men accused of working for China. On Wednesday, Keir Starmer released the internal security documents to dismiss allegations that his government had allowed the case to fall apart to maintain ties with Beijing. The three classified statements from the Deputy National Security Advisor Matthew Collins have been made public. In the statements, Collins described China as a hostile actor. In 2023, he wrote that the Chinese intelligence services were conducting large-scale espionage operations aimed at harming the United Kingdom. Now, early this year, he called China the biggest state-based threat to the United Kingdom's economic security, and a month before the case was dropped, he warned that the Chinese operators were actively undermining the United Kingdom's democratic institutions.
That suggestions that the government concealed evidence, withdrew witnesses or restricted the ability of witnesses to draw on particular bits of evidence are all untrue. The DNSA did not materially change his evidence and was under no pressure from anyone to do so.
Now, according to reports, the alleged offences took place between the 28th of December 2021 to February 2023. In March 2023, two men, Christopher Cash and Christopher Berry, were arrested on accusations that they had leaked sensitive parliamentary intelligence to China, and they were charged with espionage offences the next year. But by September 2025, the case was dismissed. The Crown Prosecution Service said that it could not proceed further with the case because the government, past or present, had failed to define China as a national security threat at the time the alleged offences had taken place. Now, the Conservatives are calling for the full publication of all evidence, saying that Keir Starmer's move to publish some documents after pressure is simply too little too late. Now, Beijing has denied accusations of peddling spies in the United Kingdom and calling this a narrative to vilify China. All right, now to give us more updates on this, we're joined in this broadcast by our correspondent, Stuart Smith, who's joining us live from London. Stuart, give us a sense of why, this very high-profile case has in fact fallen apart.
Well, partly because it's so high profile and the fact that the vast majority, if not everyone, in the House of Commons across all parties at least wanted the trial to go ahead, including the government, including the opposition parties. And that's why it's so extraordinary, in a sense, that the case has collapsed, because no one seemed to, of course, actually want the case to collapse. Even the defendants are now saying that they are being vilified in the media with no chance to defend themselves because this trial never went ahead. So, of course, that means that all sorts of people in government, outside government, in the Crown Prosecution Service, in the opposition parties, are all blaming each other for what went wrong. Now, there will, it seems, be an inquiry into what exactly happened, but it depends who you speak to, who you listen to, will tell you where the source of the problem was. Some say the Crown Prosecution Service were too cautious by not taking the witness statements that were provided to them as a clear sign that there was a threat to national security, that the Director of Public Prosecutions was perhaps misunderstanding case law, misunderstanding the threshold that needed to be reached in order to allow this case to go to court. Others say, the Conservative Party, for example, the largest opposition party, that the Labour government had intervened in this case in order to try and make sure that the potential judgment did not interfere with its attempts at trying to create a better UK-China relationship.
Right.
And then the government blames the Conservatives, saying it was under their watch that this happened and it's their fault that this case has collapsed.
I think that's an important point that you've touched, where the allegation is effectively this, that the government in London does not want to jeopardize the equation that it has with Beijing by pursuing this case where there could have been an adverse verdict, accusing at least some of these actors of being directly linked to Beijing. Has there been political pressure so that the United Kingdom's ties with China are not impacted that has resulted in this case from collapsing?
Well, this government has directly denied that allegation multiple times in the House of Commons, for example. The Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, saying that his government wanted the case to go to head, and it was attempts, it seems, for the government to try and make itself independent of the justice system that may have been the cause for this mismatch, where the government did not want to be seen to be interfering in the case, and that actually was ironically what led to the case collapsing, because the Crown Prosecution Service could not get a direct answer on whether or not China was to be perceived as a national security threat, and if it couldn't, that meant that these two men could not be confidently charged with espionage and potentially prosecuted down that route. It was very close, the Director of Public Prosecution said, but that threshold was just not close enough.
Interesting. Thank you very much indeed, Stuart Smith, for joining us and getting us all those updates there.